Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Exploring Places Unknown. I'm your host, Tre, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Darci Steiner. She is an inspiring author, speaker, and nutritionist. Darci's journey is one of resilience. After a life-threatening fall in 2001, she turned her focus to a holistic nutrition, earning a master's degree that helped transform her health. Following another setback from a foot injury in 2018, she channeled her experiences into her award-winning debut book, Beauty Beyond the Thorns, where she explores how suffering can lead to spiritual healing. And with that being said, Darci, welcome to the show, and I'm glad to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Tre. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's been something that I've been waiting to have with you for a while. I think that your story is very unique, and your title is really what caught my attention, The Beauty Beyond the Thorns. That's very interesting. And the only thing I can think of that there's beauty in something like that is a rose. Maybe there's something else, but roses, they start out with thorns and then it turns out to be this really, really beautiful thing.
Right.
And so I really just want to pick your brain and talk about your life experiences and some of the tools that you use to get to where you are. And so we could just start there and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the book came about as a result of some severe suffering that I've had in my life. And so the title came because of that. And I have found beauty within suffering. And that's kind of counterintuitive. It sounds kind of off to some people. Like, how can you find beauty in suffering? But when you are in suffering, you have to. You have to if you'll continue to go on. And so I was seeing just all these gifts that I was being given and started writing about them. And, for instance, like the gift of perseverance. It is a gift when you are in a situation like me, falling down the stairs, hurting my back, being bedridden for a couple years, and having two little kids and trying to figure out what is going on with my body and the suffering, the emotional pain that you're going through because your kids are little, and you want to be with them and you want to do everything that you were doing with them before. And so I started questioning God, and I started questioning, how does this fit into my life plan with my two little girls? Because once I had them, I felt like I am living the high life. I'm where I want to be. I'm enjoying my family and I was so happy. Tre, every day was just an adventure. My dreams had come true of finding the right man and my two little girls. And we would go places all the time, and I'd put them in classes to see what their interests were, like any young mom.
Right.
But most young moms don't then lose their ability to walk, their ability to go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, we had to set up a commode by my bedside. And this was a back injury, right? So most people would heal after a couple years, you would think, right? So there was something else that was going on that was not being diagnosed. And after going to dozens and dozens and dozens of doctors, my counselor finally said, "Darci, is that working for you?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "I just see every time you come home, you are discouraged. And that is not helping, because I see you losing hope. You get hope when you have a new doctor. And then when you get home, you plummet." And she said, "You've got to figure something else out, because at this point, Tre, I was dying because I was malnourished."
Wow.
And I was malnourished because when you're in pain, you're not hungry. You're just not. Like now when I'm in pain, usually my go-to is just a smoothie because it's much easier to drink calories than it is to eat them. Well, back then I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so I started studying to save my own life. I started studying about nutrition, and I had enrolled already in a master's degree program, a study at home program. And so I had just received my first books, my first set of books. So I'm opening my books and I'm sitting up maybe 5 minutes at a time, just a few times per day. And while the kids were playing, I would read. And so I found this protein shake that I had my husband make for me. And that was the beginning of my adventures into nutrition.
That's very interesting. You know, I can think of a lot of things just from hearing what you just said, specifically the gift part
Hmm.
and going through suffering. So do you feel like if you wasn't bedridden that you wouldn't have found some of those gifts? Like what I'm trying to say is I think a lot of times when people go through suffering or something, they try to
Hmm.
fill it with something or a
Yeah,
distraction. And because you physically could not move, do you think that's one of the reasons why you developed your gift of perseverance and all the things that you have?
absolutely. Absolutely. And a gift of gratitude, because any little improvement I was hugely grateful for. And I wouldn't have normally been grateful for those things had I not been bedridden.
Mhm.
For instance, just my little girls coming up and saying goodnight to me or giving me a kiss would be an ordinary everyday occurrence, but I remember everyone,
Yeah.
and singing the Barney song to them at night, when I could occasionally do that still with them. I would do that with them and be grateful that I could do that. And before that, was I grateful to sing the Barney song with them? It was just another day, you know? So the profoundness of the gratitude is what increased for me. And it increased because of the decrease in functionality.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what was it that you were diagnosed with?
Well, much later, I was diagnosed with a condition called complex regional pain syndrome. It's more common today because doctors are knowing how to diagnose this, which is still difficult. That's why it's called complex.
Mm.
CRPS is short for it. It used to be called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Same thing. It's a nerve pain disorder that, when ranked on a pain scale, ranks the highest pain one can feel. So
Whoa.
that is above cancer. That is above amputation. Like it is, it is, I can't even, there's not even a word, severely painful. And it's different for everyone who has it, but it is a nerve pain issue.
And is that something you're born with, or is it just kind of develop or something over time?
Yeah, it usually occurs in someone after they've had an injury, especially to a limb, or after surgery, where someone's not healing properly, or after someone's been in a boot or they've been wrapped like in a cast or something and you have no movement. Oftentimes it occurs as a result of that. So, no, it's not something that you're born with,
Okay.
although children can get it. But that's why it was so hard to diagnose, you know, and probably part of the reason why I wasn't getting better was because I was so still in bed because it hurt to move. So I wasn't flexing my toes or anything like that. And so I got it. I healed from it, and then I got it again. And so, yes, today I still have it. I have it a second time.
That's very interesting. So, a little background about me. I'm actually in the medical field, and I don't think I've come across this diagnosis before.
Hmm.
I've seen other kinds of things like sickle cell, which is extremely painful, but this is like number one for pain,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm.
And so, how do people? Well, how do you combat that pain?
Oh boy. It is different every day. The best analgesic for me is writing books that make me where I'm so engaged in what I'm doing that I can forget for a little while about my pain. Watching TV doesn't do it for me. My brain has to be focused on something completely different. And right now, I'm taking a neuroscience class so I can understand the physiology of it better, so I can try to overcome it better. There is no cure, they say, but who's they, right? I
Right.
mean, I was healed of it once before. I was given a 9-year reprieve, remission, if you will, whatever you want to call it, for 9 years after, went through my nutrition program. I was my case study. And I came through that 6 years later, opened my private practice the next year, and I had no pain. I thought I was healed, Trey. I thought that's the end of CRPS for me. And
Mhm.
I was hiking with my family again. I was teaching sports nutrition at the local high school. I was living my life again and living it with my girls as teenagers. And, and then in 2018, just a small injury to my foot put me back into severe chronic pain with CRPS. So this is my boxing ring, if you will. I'm round two, and I believe I can overcome it again. It's been longer. It's been 7 years this time. Last time it was 4 or 5 years. So this one's harder, and I am older. I mean, I was 35 when it first happened, and right now I'm 60. So um, it may be because I'm older, but I'm also a nutritionist. I'm also delving into neuropsychology,
Yeah.
just all of that stuff. And so I believe in a God that can heal me too.
So CRPS, that's a constant for you. You're constantly experiencing this. So even right now, you're feeling it.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that before. Um, have you been a part of any support groups or anything, or met other people that are dealing with what you're dealing with?
You know, um, yes and no. I used to be a part of a support group, but I found that, I'm an HSP. Have you heard that term
Mm-mm.
before? Highly sensitive person.
Okay.
So it's like when you hear someone's story, you kind of take on their pain.
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
highly sensitive. So HSPs, you know, that one's not so easy for me. Although I do counsel people in my nutrition practice who have CRPS and other chronic pain conditions. I try to help them with things that have helped me to curb my pain nutritionally. Um, and with brain, kind of tricking the brain and holistic practices. So I do have a community of people that I do work with, it's different when I'm trying to help them rather than just listening to their stories, because I know that they're on this trajectory of, I want help, instead of just airing what they're feeling.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different for me. So, um, I don't know that I could do that. Um, but I do have people contact me, and people that hear me on podcasts, for instance, call me up and say, hey, can we talk? Or can you help me nutritionally? Or those kind of people. Yeah, definitely. That's my
Hmm.
support system, my support group right there.
I think it's really cool that you know your limitations about yourself and that you can say, no, this is not something I want to do. I think that's really cool. And so with CRPS, um, how was faith involved in that? Were you already spiritual before that, or is that where you kind of found God?
You ask really good questions. I've always had faith, but the first round of CRPS, I wavered. Is there really a God? Because if there's really a God, how could he let this happen to me? And you hear that a lot in
Hmm.
people who are going through things, right?
Yeah.
How could he let something so bad happen when I was I was church planting, I was teaching in the teen ministry, I was serving God, I was loving God. Um, and so God has grown me through these circumstances, and God has used them to create deeper, wider space for him to dwell within me. It's like he's had to open me up in places where I didn't engage before. And I've had to trust him in this process, that he is opening a wider space in me so that I have a deeper capacity for him and to understand more difficult things about him.
Wow.
Because when we're suffering, we seek him.
Yeah.
When we're on cruise control days, we forget about him. And so eventually, this second time around, I had a place where I'm not even praying. I got to a place where, like, it's doing me no good to pray. It hurts. And I realized my prayers were like genie prayers. God, please, do this for me, do this for me. I need this, and can you please do this? And it was like I was rubbing the genie bottle, and I was like, this is not right. This is not prayer. This is not getting me anywhere. So I am just going to stop. And so I did. I stopped. And funny thing happened, and that is, I thought more about prayer. I thought more about, what is it? What truly is prayer? Come to find out, I never stopped praying. I was praying in
Mm.
a different way, because my life is a prayer to God.
Wow.
How I live my life matters to God more than the words that come out of my mouth. And I didn't give up my faith, but I struggled. I wrestled with God deeply, deeply. Like, imagine you are healed from a disease that has no cure. You had a miraculous healing. This was me. I had a miraculous healing. For 9 years, I'm enjoying life. And then round two, I get it back again, Tre. I, I, I couldn't believe it. And when it first happened, I was like, yep, it's back. I felt it immediately, because the pain that I experienced from the injury was way more than a normal person would have felt with the same.
Mm.
You know, what happened was a chair fell on my foot. So a small thing set me back into this CRPS. And so, yeah, I was mad. I was really, really angry with God and trying to understand, what didn't I learn the first time? Why are you sending me back to this place? I learned so much the first time, and I have an answer to that. What he taught me is, the first time I kept everything to myself. I learned a lot, but
Mm.
I didn't share it with the world. And I think God wanted me to share what I've learned through my suffering with the world. So I'm on a mission now, and I've got a purpose, and that is to help other people through pain, suffering, whatever they're going through. It doesn't have to be physical pain. It can be emotional pain. I've experienced emotional pain right alongside with this. We've experienced financial distress, job loss, etc., all of that. But I'm on a mission to share with the world what I'm learning, and that is through the medium of what I can do, and that is write books. I can podcast and I can speak, and I do speaking gigs, but mostly local. And through those mediums, I try to share with the world, pain and sorrow are a means to a deeper relationship and understanding with God.
So what's your hope with CRPS for yourself? Is that something that you're hoping? I can assume that you want it to go away, but let's say it didn't. Does that change how you respond? And that's a really hard question.
It is, and it's a very good question. I have told God I will go anywhere and do anything for him. When I started telling him that, I didn't know he was going to take me deeper into pain. I thought, oh, I can go speak places and I can go do this and do that. But he took me deeper into pain when I started saying that. And I'm not going to take that back. I want to do what the Lord is leading me to do. And if he wants me to go there, he will strengthen me. He will give me what I need to do that. And so far he has. But it only can happen one day at a time, because I cannot take on more than a moment.
Hmm.
It's just, I think how we're meant to live anyway is moment to moment, so that we can take in and enjoy what we can. And I have to enjoy the little things. I have some flowers back here
Oh yeah, I like them.
on my desk. These are all from our garden. And my husband, what he does is he goes on walks and he brings me, I love these little vases, and he'll bring home singular flowers and he'll put them in these vases for me so that I have them to look at while I'm working. And he
Wow.
brings nature into me because I have a difficult time going out to nature. And so you have to find joy in the little things. And these aren't really so little when you think about it. They're beautiful creations. And so I've learned to enjoy the simple things, which I think we get so complicated, in our days. We're worried about this and that, and we take on too much. And I do too, because
Hmm.
I like to be productive.
Yeah, me too.
Um, so it's just taking on a moment at a time and seeing what I can do with that moment. And if I have to pull back, I have to pull back. But if I can give more, then I give. But what helps me is, pain makes us very selfish.
Mm.
It turns us inward. so that we're thinking about us. But when we think about other people, it then turns that pain outward. And so that is also an analgesic. When I'm focused more on other people and what they're going through, that also helps me forget about my own pain. And so if we can turn our pain outward and focus on other people instead of complaining, I'm going through this, I'm feeling this hurts, you know, think about someone else and give them a flower, give them something beautiful, and you're going to feel better yourself. So we don't have an excuse, those of us who are going through whatever it is we're going through, to focus just on ourselves. Our goal is to be selfless, right? I mean,
Right.
selfish people aren't fun to be around.
I agree. And so while you're talking, I'm thinking of there's a physical pain and then there's an emotional pain. And you're carrying that physical pain with you every single day. And I think some people, they may experience some type of emotional pain or whatever it may be to where it feels like it's CRPS. I'm
Uh,
sure, but it's
yes,
on the emotional side. It's not the nerve side.
right.
And so what would be your advice for that?
What helps me most with emotional pain, honestly, personally, is reading my Bible because I see the promises of God in there. And I think that there aren't a lot of answers to emotional things that we go through outside of the Word of God. Again, my personal opinion. There are, I think the same thing applies, that when we give to other people, it can take away some of our emotional pain. I have struggled with depression, a severe depression. Uh, Many times I lost my mom very suddenly in a car accident
Mm,
and was not able to say goodbye, and struggled with that for a long time and was on antidepressants. And, so just a lot of losses. During my first disability, I was on antidepressants. But now that I'm a nutritionist, I've not been on an antidepressant because I take amino acids. And
mhm.
amino acids keep me from going to that place. And it's not that I never get down, it's that
Interesting.
I've not been depressed.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of amino acids are you taking?
Another good question. Okay, so when I wake up, I take tyrosine, and I need to put a disclaimer out here that anybody who's listening to this, please visit either with me, with someone, with a doctor. Doctors aren't going to know about it. They don't study amino acids. You just be careful, especially if you're taking medications. But I take tyrosine in the morning, and then a half hour later, I take, it's called DLPA, D-L-phenylalanine. And I take that twice a day, and that helps with mood. Tyrosine also helps with mood. And these all feed the neurotransmitters in our brain, just like what medications do, but it does it naturally. And medications are mimicked after amino acids. So why not go
Mm.
to the regular natural source, right?
Is this something you can buy over the counter
Yep,
or? Okay,
yep,
interesting.
yep. Also tryptophan, tryptophan's in turkey. So what amino acids are they're building blocks of protein. So if we have a well-balanced protein-rich diet, we're getting a fair amount of amino acids that way. or if you put a scoop of amino acids, into like a smoothie, you're getting it that way. So there are different kinds of proteins. Obviously, there's meat protein, there's vegetable protein, there's different kinds that you can get at the supermarket. So there are many, many more amino acids that work on different pathways to the brain. And so what I do when I get a client, one of the first things that I do is I have them fill out a sheet that tells me what are they deficient in? What amino acid could be helping you, whether it's you're sleep deprived, whether it's your mood, whether it's your muscle mass.
Mhm.
There are so many things that protein does for the body, but there are good mood foods out there.
Other
Uh,
than sugar
yeah,
and
yeah,
cookies.
yeah, that's good mood for temporary, but not for long term.
I take 5-HTP.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I
That's
take I, I take about 300, 400 milligrams of that.
okay. That's a precursor to tryptophan.
Oh, okay.
So
Whoa.
it's almost the same thing as tryptophan.
And
It becomes tryptophan in your body. So,
ah,
mhm.
now are the aminos super expensive?
No, they're actually not. And in fact, one of the reasons that I like to recommend them, there's many that come in chewable form. And for a lot of people who take, not just, well, supplements, but also medications, you get tired of swallowing pill after pill after pill. And sometimes you just want to chew on one. So, um, some of them come in chewable forms too. So the milligrams vary, and so you've got to make sure and again take the right amount, and everybody's different. So um, so we have to take that into account.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I probably need to look into that. And the reason I asked if it was expensive is because I find that sometimes the things that really help us, they put a really big price tag on them for some reason, and that's unfortunate. But that's something I'm going to look into moving forward. I
Hmm.
do want to circle back and to the topic of suffering and finding your gifts.
Hmm. Yes.
I feel like there's a lot there that you're not sharing with us
That we still need to
that
unpack.
that
There's
we need to
so
unpack.
many things. Yes.
And so, yeah, the floor is yours. I just want to learn from you.
Okay. So, Beauty Beyond the Thorns, discovering gifts in suffering. It is a treasure hunt, and it is searching for them. Um, the gift of compassion is one that I outline in my book. So let me share a story with you. There was one day we got a call from the elementary school when my daughter was, I think she was third grade or fourth grade, and she had forgotten her lunch. And so I wasn't able to drive. My husband gets in the car. We're not far from the school. He brings the lunch over to the school, but the kids are already out on the playground for recess. So our daughter had missed her lunch. Mark is still bringing her lunch into the school, but he's looking for her on the playground and he can't find her. So he's looking, and he looks over at the blacktop, and he sees Jenny. And what is she doing? She's wheeling a boy around in his wheelchair during her recess. She's not playing with her friends. She's helping this boy in a wheelchair. Where did Jenny learn that compassion? Because she grew up with a mom who was in a wheelchair. She learned it. It is a gift that was given to her as a small child to extend to this boy on the playground who wasn't playing with anyone else. I'm so proud of my daughter still. When Mark told me that this was going on, I just burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my goodness, Jenny learned this from having a disabled mom. That is a gift of compassion that we couldn't have taught her, but life circumstances taught her. And so, yeah, was it a bummer that her mom was in a wheelchair for part of her life while she was growing up? Sure, it was. But what are the gifts that she can glean from that? And today she is a child life specialist. So
Really?
she's taken this along with her into the hospital setting, and she helps children. So is it because she grew up with a disabled mom? I tend to think so. And that is the gift of compassion that is extending beyond her. She's extending that. You know, the boy that received that day, what a blessing for him, you know? And
Mm.
she was an example to her classmates. Let's play with this boy. And so people are watching her, and they watched her on the soccer field, and she just exudes compassion to this day. Both of my girls do. My other daughter studies, she's just about to graduate in December with her PhD, and she studies how children develop the concept of pain. Now, is that coincidental?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I don't either. So the gift of compassion, that's one of the gifts that I outline in the book. The gift of direction. My path has been set on a totally different direction. I never would have become a nutritionist. Are you kidding? Like I fed my kids fish sticks and, Kipper snack. Well, Kipper snacks aren't so bad. Lots of salt. But what are those snacks that come in a pack with cheese and crackers?
Lunchables.
Lunchables, yes. I would buy those for them occasionally and, just kind of easy stuff, Go-Gurt and that kind of thing. So me, a nutritionist, never would have thought that I'd be a nutritionist. An author is something I always desired. Many people desire to become a writer and publish a book, but most of those who desire that don't do it. But what enabled me to do that was because I had to sit.
Mm.
I sit almost the entire day. So because I can walk so little, I need something. I need projects to keep me going. And so writing, actually, can I read a poem
Yeah, absolutely.
that I put in Beauty Beyond the Thorns?
Yes.
It will give you some insight. Okay, it's called Courage. Some preface to this poem. I was sitting outside in my wheelchair in the winter in the garage. The garage is where the sun was coming in, and I was trying to warm up because the house was cold. I was trying to see the sun because I hadn't seen the sun for a couple years. And my husband figured out, well, he put a ramp in the garage, got me outside, and I'm sitting there with my Bible and a TV tray and a notebook. And these words, the beginning words, just came to me. So I wrote them down, and then the rest of the poem flowed out of me. And then my neighbor came over and she said, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? And I said, well, not great. I said, but I just wrote a poem. You want to hear it? And she goes, sure. And so I read it to her and she goes, "You should put that in a book." And so this is the first writing of this book that I put
Incredible.
in here. So this is called Courage. Tears untamed, mascara-stained face like black rivers flow incessantly, sculpting new features, furrowed brow, eyes scowl, dimples disappear. Lips purse, smiles cursed, all so well rehearsed. Pain asunder pulls me underneath the former life I've lost. Time escaping, memories fading of the former life I've lost. Still I live. Still I live. I am still imprisoned in this body, drowning in unfathomable pain, looming darkness, sinister doubt, and inflexible fear. Yet, beneath black rivers, tears run clear to my soul, arousing tender shoots. Tears untamed clear the way for new life to begin. What's grieved has passed, the die is cast. Courage sought, brows part, lifting eyes to see. I am still all that lies within. Strength rises, new horizons, dimples reappear. Black rivers wash scales from my eyes to see the unseen. Soul watered, rest follows. I am still all that lies within. I was struggling with, am I still me? Am I still who I am, even though my body is different? Do I still hold the same values? Do I still have the same memories? Am I still me? Because I felt like I'm disappearing. My memories are fading of my former life. And I have a new life, a disabled one. But am I still me? That's what I was grappling with. And after all of that, I realized I'm still me. There's hope. There's hope in this life, even though I'm sitting in the garage, freezing, blankets wrapped around me. I can't get comfortable. But I just wrote a poem, you know? And so that's something good to hold on to. And my dimples reappeared.
Yeah. They're appearing right now. I have a question about your family. So I understand your personal suffering as well. How do you think they felt? Do you think they suffered in some degree going through this with you?
My husband, I'll start with. Absolutely. The first disability, he became depressed because his wife was dying. And he's trying to figure out, how do I move forward without Darci? And how do I move forward with two little girls without Darci? And how do I work? And all the things that come with that. The second disability, Mark is my anchor. Well, God
Mm.
is my anchor. Mark is my whatever's next best anchor. My rope. He instills hope in me. When I express a thought of being down, he's like, you always get better, but you've
Mm.
always gotten better. But there's tomorrow. Feelings fly away like the wind. You'll feel better tomorrow. That's my Mark. I call him remarkable because he is. And I wouldn't say that he has struggled with depression the way that he did the first go around, because he saw me get better and he's always held on to that hope. that I'm not going to be like this forever. And on days when I feel like I'm going to be like this forever, he speaks into my soul and helps me remember I'm not going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
So, yes, he has been both positively and negatively affected by it. Second round, more positive. He always tells me, Darci, this is our journey. This isn't your journey, and I'm helping you along it. And my life sucks because I'm a caregiver. He's never, ever said that.
Mm.
He may have felt it before, but every time I hear him talk, he always says we, us, our. This is our story, and I believe him because I'm the one that looks into his eyes and I see his soul. And we speak together sometimes and we talk about our journey. And we are together in this until the Lord parts us. And I'm hoping to get better in part for him because I would like to free him from being a caregiver. And I'm not completely dependent on him like some people are. You know, it's like a roller coaster. I go through periods of where I'm doing better and I can do more for myself. Right now, I'm in a downtime. I'm using my scooter in the house again. I'm hardly able to walk right now. And so I never know what to expect from day to day. And so neither does he, you know,
We're just taking it one step at a time.
but it's a day at a time.
Yeah. Day at a time. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And he is very near to God. He spends the mornings, every morning he sits by the fireplace. Now, finally, it's starting to warm up in Colorado. So he's turning the fireplace off and turning towards the mountains. But he spends time with God every morning before I get up, and it centers him. His relationship with God centers him for whatever's to come that day. And does he struggle? Of course. You know, we're not superheroes. We go through down times together and we go through, good times together. So, but we are committed to each other in sickness and in health. It was the vows that we took, and we've been married almost 34 years. He's still with me. So I believe him that he loves me.
Yeah. What do you think his gifts are from this? And I heard you mention that your daughters, one is involved in childcare and the other in pain.
Yes.
They develop. So
Uh-huh.
what do you think happened with him?
As far as his job and that kind of thing?
Or no, his giftings. Like
Oh,
through, because in some degree he's suffering with you right through this.
yeah.
So what do you think gifting came out of that? What kind of gift do you think came from that for him?
Yes, so many. He is a connector of people. Again, when I talked about turning our pain outward, he does that as well. And how he does that is through men. He's a connector of men. Like this weekend, he's having a fire out in our driveway, a fire pit out in our driveway. We just have a portable pit, but he invites the neighbors over and he invites friends over, and there's just men around the campfire eating hot dogs and whatever, just doing guy stuff. And people love it. People watch him for how he takes care of me. People at the pool. So I go to the therapy pool every week and people watch him. And all my friends at the pool have gotten to know him. And he is so kind. And one guy said, I would never be able to do that for my
Mm.
wife. They watch him help me get out of the wheelchair, get my stuff out of the bag. After the pool, I go into the dry sauna. He sits there and waits for me, and he does work while he's there. But he is sacrificing his time for me. And it has affected his work. Because he's been caring for me the past 7 years, his business is not thriving. Let's put it like that. But he has chosen me over his work.
Mm.
I highly respect that. And we're trying to figure it out with me getting my book out. He's trying some different things. But the fact that he's chosen me over his work, I think is a message to a lot of men and probably to a lot of women as well. Choose people, choose love. Because when I almost died, he knew I'm choosing Darci because I don't want to lose her again.
Mm.
I don't want there to be a chance that I'm losing her. And so I think all of us can learn from that. Let's choose love over work or figure out some different things. And we have figured out some different things and we're still figuring out, we're still in process, but he has a gift of communication. He's a great speaker. He's very intelligent. He's a Princeton grad, so
Wow.
he is smart.
Yeah.
Um, but that was hard for him. Princeton was difficult. So he also has the gift of perseverance. Um, and I think just the gift of love. I would define Mark as having the gift of love,
Mm.
not just for me, but for his guy friends, for the people that he meets at the pool, for people who have disabilities or other challenges. He speaks into them. He gets with people regularly to help them. He should be in the ministry again. He used to be in the ministry full time, and he should be, in my opinion.
Mark sounds like someone I need in my personal life.
He's a mentor. He's a mentor. And he is speaking into younger people's lives. We both are trying to do that because we have a responsibility to help, right? A lot of younger
Mhm.
people don't want it though.
No.
But for the people that do, we're here. We're here. And we tell people that. And there's some people that take us up on it and some people that don't. And that's fine. But for the people that do, you know,
Mhm.
we have some friends who he met. So he regularly goes for walks and he regularly asks people on the trail, is there anything that I can pray for you about while I'm walking on the trail? Some people break down and cry and ask for him to pray for them right then. Most people say, yeah, you can pray for, my daughter was just divorced. Can you pray for her? Her name is Sally or whatever. But there was this couple that said, we are nearing divorce. Can you pray for us? So he prayed for them right then. We've had a relationship with this younger couple for 4 years. They are doing awesome. They now have a baby and they are moving out of Colorado because it's so expensive here to live. So I'm in near tears because they're leaving soon. But God helped us help them, and they were open to having older people help them on their journey. And God used it. God used Mark, to bring them into our lives to have somebody wrap their arms around them. And now they have the cutest little baby, happy baby, and we're sending them off, you know? But
I've never, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the kind of thing that I'm so grateful that when younger people are open to it, that we love to do it.
You mentioned he has the gift of love. I've never heard that before.
Hmm.
And so my next question is, you probably already know, what is love? How do you define that? What does it look like? Is it just an emotion? Is it a feel good thing? What is love?
It's care and compassion. It's putting others before yourself. It's being tethered to the supreme source of love. I think he can love so deeply because he's tethered to a God who is love. So God is love. But when I look at Mark, seriously, when I look into his eyes, I feel like I can see into his soul. And it brings me so much comfort, so much peace. When there's nights when I can't sleep, there's some nights where I'm like practically screaming in pain, and
Wow.
he'll hold my hand, and he'll just be by the bedside, and I'll say, "I need your eyes. I need your eyes. I need the light on. I need to see you." And I'll look into his eyes, and it calms and comforts me. That is love. It is being there in the middle of the night when you're wanting to sleep, and he's never hesitated, although I try not to ask him for additional help, you know? Um, but when people see him folding a towel for me to sit on, um, you know, because it hurts for me to sit on a bench because my skin hurts. You know, he takes the most care. Like today, he brought me breakfast. I don't even have to ask him. He just brings me breakfast, and he knows what I like, and he thinks ahead. But I'm not the only one that feels it from him. He is like Dr. Doolittle, where all these, is it Dr. Doolittle, where all the animals felt like
Animals,
they
yeah.
could go to him? He's
Hmm.
like that for people. He's like
Wow.
Dr. Remarkable, where people are just drawn to him. And he gives off the most pleasant vibes of love and care and concern. And how he has time to do that and the capacity to do that outside of just me is unique. It is it is because he's tethered to the supreme source of love.
Yeah, he's getting his strength from somewhere else, because most people, they'll stick by your side for a little bit, but the way you're describing him, it's like, Mark, I might need to meet you. And for me, I want to see what love looks like, just to meet him and see that, because you don't see that or hear about that
Mm,
very often.
mm. You would love him. I don't know anybody that doesn't. I really don't. I He just draws people. And
You're
even
talking
people,
about him, and I feel drawn to him.
yeah, and our pets were so drawn to him. It's the ions, like it's the vibe that he gives, the energy that he
Mm.
puts out. It's positive, it's love, it's I'll be your best friend, it's I'm here for you. People just know. And my friends love him, you know? And I'm okay with that because there's nothing weird going on there. But they feel as comfortable talking with him as they do me. And when he comes in and I'm visiting with someone, he won't pass by. He'll stop and say hi, and then they'll get engaged in conversation. And I'm like, hello, you know, like they just adore him too. And if they're listening to this, they are nodding their head in agreement like you are. Like, yep, I feel that about Mark. He is remarkable indeed. And again, it's because he centers himself every morning to get ready for his day.
Does he do the Manitou incline?
No, he
Okay.
does. There's one closer to our house. He takes great care of himself. When he goes for walks, he used to run with our dog, but he's now 65. So he goes for 2-hour walks instead of runs.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
he's really fit. He eats really well. And so, yeah, he takes really good care of himself, but there's an incline that's closer to our house that he does.
I asked that because I went to Manitou Springs last year and
Did you?
I did the Manitou incline, and there was a guy walking around with a bird on his shoulder, just stopping people to pray for him on the way up and down the incline. I was like, what are the odds?
Wow, yeah, that would have been crazy, wouldn't it? No, we don't have a bird.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. That was going to be my next question. You know, I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah,
That would have been,
yeah.
but I had to ask.
I'm
So
glad you did. That sounds like Dr. Doolittle if he had an animal on him, right?
And the
Or
parrot or the bird was just like hanging out, just having
wow,
fun.
wow.
Yeah.
Or Saint Francis of Assisi, also animals were drawn to him, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I have another question. Finding the meaning of your suffering. So when you talked about the first time you didn't share everything that you went through, and the second time you started to share, like, oh, okay. So how do people find the meaning of their suffering?
journaling helps because when you write your thoughts down, it just is another way to slow your mind down so that you can see. So I encourage writing. I encourage journaling so that you can see and you can look back on, huh, did that really come from me? Because we all
Hmm.
write things and we're like, did I write that? I don't remember writing that, but it came from somewhere deep within us, right? Or it came from our mind that was waiting to be released somehow and came out with pen and paper. So I think pen and paper are a great tool, a simple tool, an inexpensive tool toward healing. I think a lot of our counseling we can do for ourselves by just getting in touch with our feelings,
Hmm.
through the means of prose, writing it out. And so I think that's one method. Um, Another method is getting in nature and spending time in nature and just being quiet and
That's a
seeing
big one.
what comes up. What comes up
Yeah.
for you when you're just still, but
Wow.
not still in a house, still in nature.
Mhm.
Because when creation is around you and surrounding you and you're still within it,
Mm.
there are just things that come up. And it could be words, it could be a picture, it could be an image of hope, or a phrase or a quote, you know, um, I'm trying to think of a quote that came to me one day when I was sitting in nature. Um, okay, this is it. So I was with my baby granddaughter at the time, and Mark was pushing me in the wheelchair, and my granddaughter was riding on my lap. And we get to the end of the sidewalk, and there's grass. So Mark takes the granddaughter, puts her on the grass. And so they go around running. She's 1 at the time. So she's just learned to walk, but they're like walking along the grass. And then they go out of my vision, because she's following a chipmunk or something. And I'm feeling bad for myself. I'm like, well, I want to do that. I want to I want to play with my granddaughter. But I look up and I see this tree, and it's the beginning of winter, so all the leaves have fallen off of this humongous tree. And I'm like, okay, Darci, you need to just enjoy this tree because this is what's here for you right now. So I'm looking at this tree and I'm looking at all the branches and the intricacies of it. And then this quote came to me: do not destroy what you can enjoy by wishing things could be better. So I was wishing things could be better. But if I had just had that attitude, I would not have enjoyed this moment. And I heard the wind blow through these branches. And I was enjoying the wind, the tree. And it's something that I would not have thought would have happened that day by being left out of playing with my granddaughter. But I figured out a way. I was in nature, enjoy what I could so that I wouldn't destroy it.
That's beautiful.
So that's another example, I think.
Do you believe God talks to us?
In various ways, not audibly, but I have had various things happen to me that there's no way that it wasn't God. It is so obvious that it was, and I write about one of them in Beauty Beyond the Thorns, and that was after my mom had passed. I was not getting better. I was depressed forever, and I just could not overcome this sorrow of losing my mom. And it was my first big loss. I was 42 when I lost her. And I started having dreams about her. And the dream, so it changed over time. So it started out with my mom was very far away and her back was facing me, but I knew it was my mom in the dream.
Okay.
And then she was a little closer and she was running after someone, and I yelled, "Mom, Mom," but she didn't hear me. And so she didn't turn around and come back. And then the next day, she was closer and I said, "Hi, Mom." But she couldn't hear me and she didn't recognize me. But she's facing me now. So it's like she's getting a little closer and she's now facing me. Tre, I had dreams for a month, 1 month, every day about my mom. And some people might be like, there's no way. Well, there's a way with God, because I don't know how this happened, but I recorded them. And so there's one day, the day that I actually hugged her, I didn't know it was her. I was in the bathroom. I went into the bathroom. I was at some event, and I ran into this lady with a long brown coat and blue scarf. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she looked at me and she said, "Darci." And I'm like, "Mom." And we just embraced each other. And I woke up and I still felt that embrace.
Wow.
And it was something
Wow.
beyond this world. So, yes, I do believe God healed me. After that, I was able to get off my antidepressant. I needed some kind of closure, and that gave me closure. But counseling didn't do it. It was dreaming about her for a month. And then, we were driving in the car and she's wearing her beautiful blue and I see her blue eyes and we're driving down the street I grew up on. And so things seemed normal again. But I needed that healing. And I think God in his compassion reached down and gave me these dreams.
What's your perspective on people that blame God for what they're going through?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think people do that?
Because when we're hurt, we want to blame someone. And if there's no one to blame, there's God, right? Because God is there. So we always look to blame someone or something. And often it's a first response, and God expects it. I think he's okay with us being angry with him. He can handle it, you know. But I think he also wants to change our perspective. He wants us to come into a place of where we realize why he's allowed it. He doesn't cause pain, but he allows it, like he did with Job. Sometimes he allows the pain, but he always allows it for our benefit. And he's working behind the scenes where we can't see, so we don't know the answers to our why questions. Why me? Why God? Why now? Why suffering? Why so much suffering? We ask the why questions when we should be asking, who? Who can help me through this? Who can help me have a different lens, a different perspective? Who can help me turn this into something good for other people, for myself, for my family? Because heartache can be turned into rejoicing if we allow him to. And if we allow him to, that means we open ourselves up to, okay, I'm going to ask you, God, to show me. It's not a quick response. It's a gentle changing, turning. God, would you please show me what you want for this and from this? And it's positioning ourselves under a God who can do anything. But I think one thing that's lacking for most people is we don't understand how much God adores us. God created us. He knit us together in our mother's wombs. I might have said that wrong. Wombs. I'm used to saying wound. He knit us together in our mother's wombs. And so he knows us intimately. So he doesn't hate us. He's not punishing us. He's wanting us to draw nearer to him. And so how can we do that? We can do it by positioning ourselves, turning ourselves slowly toward him, facing him with an understanding that God adores me. I'm not in trouble. I didn't do something to deserve this. If you didn't do something to deserve this, now if you were drunk and you fell and you hurt yourself, you did something. But still, he loves you and he wants to turn this into something good. So it's not punishment, it's how can we better ourselves or the world, the people around us, and how can we give to the world? And that's our response.
I think there's a lot of people that choose to approach God from a scientific standpoint and just say, well, God's not real. And then there's also a category of people that say, well, if God is love, this shouldn't happen. And so I really love your take on it about asking the different question, like, how can God help me through this instead of blaming him? So, of course, there's going to be people that aren't going to believe, but I just wanted to hear your perspective on that. Um, I know of people that they literally blame God and they just say, well, why would he allow this to happen? Or whatever it may be. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And to those people, I would recommend reading the book of Job. The book of Job is very difficult to understand. But basically, Job is going through severe suffering, and he's got layer upon layer of things going on. He's lost his family, he's lost his livestock, he's lost his health, and God allowed Satan to attack him in this way. But so long as he spared Job's life. So Satan is the enemy of this world. Instead of blaming God, we need to blame Satan. Satan deserves that hatred. Satan deserves that why. God deserves love, compassion, the same things that he gives you. He wants a loving relationship with you. And to combat Satan, I'm writing another book right now called The Greatest Hits of the Bible, Experiencing God Through the Psalms.
Wow.
One of the most powerful tactics that we can use against the enemy is music, is singing worship songs to God. Satan hates it. Satan hates that we do that we adore and worship God. So in the middle of the night when I'm hurting, I worship God. I start singing, and it changes a lot of things in me. But yeah, when we read that book and we see his friends showed up and his friends said a lot of negative things like, well, you deserve this, Job, and his friends were no help. So we need to be careful when we talk to people who are going through suffering and say very little. Say very little. Just listen. Hold their hand, listen, hear them out, and don't correct them. Because they are in acute suffering right then. All they need is love. They don't need to be corrected. These guys didn't need to correct Job. He knew what he was saying was wrong, I wish that, I never lived, is one of the things Job said. He didn't need to be corrected. He is in acute suffering, and things come out of us, our words, that when we're going through acute suffering, like we'll swear or we'll say things that we don't mean, words that will fly away another day, but that we're feeling right then. So we tend to self-correct already. We don't need others to correct us. But God, in the end, told Job, can you do this? Can you do that? Did you make creation? No. And so Job learned a lesson that day. God is God, and I am Job. And God had Job pray for his 3 friends. So even though Job said some hard things, he still loved God. And God ended up blessing the second part of his life more than the first. So when we meet up with people who are suffering, this is just a tip. Please don't say much. Please just hear them out. Don't correct them. Now, if they are suicidal, please do something. Please, please do something with them and don't leave them.
So like what? If I was to do something with them, what would I do in that moment if they're saying, "Hey, I don't want to live anymore"? What are some practical things?
Well, I think it's good to know ahead of time what to do. So I'm glad that you asked. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to know who to call and to have resources available. So that's tucked in your purse or your wallet. And you can say, hey, I already have some resources of some places that we can call. Let me sit with you. Let's call them and let's talk to them together. I'll stay with you. And they can have that conversation. Now, you understand this because you're a first responder. I think we also, you're a first responder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
am.
thought, yeah.
And an emergency surgeon as well.
Okay. So anyway, you know the answer to this,
Yeah.
but you don't want to leave them and you want to get them to talk as much as possible, but you want them to talk to professionals. If they're not willing to talk, then you just keep talking with them and you try to talk them into, is it okay if we call 911? But I think there are other resources that have counselors that are available that's a better choice first. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to have that already handy in your purse, I've got a list of people in the area that we can call or counselor that we can talk to. Let's do that. I want to do that with you. And let the professional be the professional. You be the person who loves, who doesn't leave them, who's there for their needs. What would you add to that, Tre?
I know that some people are not very extroverted. So, of course, I would do this for my friends. But like for a stranger and you overhear a conversation, I think it takes some courage to to step up to that person and say, "Hey, do you need some help?" You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, we can only really do so much. People can walk off or do whatever they want, but I think for those listening, it takes some courage to be vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, I noticed or heard you say something. How can I help you?" I think you don't need to, have a pre-recorded speech or anything. It's just basic human experience, just loving, I guess, or being kind to someone or compassionate can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not a professional at dealing with that situation. So the only thing I could do is just speak from my own personal experience. And what you said earlier was to just listen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, people that kind of get to that place in their life where they feel like that's the end. They just want somebody to hear them. They want somebody to see them. And I think just listening, hey, what's going on? Talk to me about this. Let's at least take a moment here and just tell me what's going on.
Mm,
And
love
that
that.
can be life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had patients that were very close to harming themselves, and we would just talk. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't judge. Just tell me what's going on. I didn't pick a side. Just tell me what's going on. And one of the reasons I believe that people self-harm and commit suicide, what I strongly believe is that they feel like they're alone.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like it's an isolated thing, that they're the only one suffering. And you just being there and listening, that can be very impactful, in my opinion.
That's awesome. Yeah, because and when you're suffering, you do feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
You do feel very alone. And so, yeah, to have the courage to reach out yourself if you're going through something like that is huge.
Yeah. Um, I could talk to you for 3 more hours. I don't know how much time you have. I did want to touch on your nutrition real quick. What is it that you do? How do you eat? And how do you believe that impacts like your mental health and stuff?
Mm, so much. We don't even realize all the things that healthy foods do for us. And unfortunately, in this country, we're losing, well, everywhere, we're losing healthy foods that aren't sprayed with pesticides and, multiple times. Apples are sprayed something like 34 times with
Whoa,
34
I didn't know
different
that.
pesticides. Yeah, so you got to use veggie wash, um, and a brush and scrub your apples, and scrub your produce with veggie wash, fruit wash, and a scrubber brush, and get some of that off and rinse it under water. Drinking water is another important thing. We need to drink half our body weight per day. So, of good purified water. So it starts with water, because our bodies are almost 80% water, and our
Mhm.
brain is even more water, So, in order to have good cognitive function, you need to have a lot of water.
Mhm.
Um, so, I eat very little because I'm not very active. So, usually I'll have an egg with toast. I eat gluten free. So I'll have an egg, which my sister has chickens. So I get free range eggs, and they're so pretty. There's so many different kinds and colors of eggs. Like, I get Easter eggs all through the summer. So it's really nice. And so I never complained about the price of eggs because I didn't have to. But yeah, so I eat, salads. I eat a lot of nuts because nuts are high in protein. Quinoa. We have
Mhm.
quinoa. We have salmon every weekend because salmon is a superfood. Um, the fats are so good for your brain. So that's also another tip for mood, is to get healthy fats. And we're afraid of the word fat, but
Mhm.
healthy fats are necessary for good brain function and other functions in our bodies. So as long as they're healthy fats, so meaning they're not coming from cakes and candies and, frosting and Lucky Charms. It's you know healthy fats that are coming from, um, mostly your fishes, your deep water fishes, your freshwater deep fish. So salmon, tuna, halibut, sardines are very good, healthy fats. And then carbohydrates, I tend to go heavier on the proteins than the carbs. It depends. Everybody I do individually, everybody I counsel has an individual body. So I don't have a template for
Yeah.
every single person that I go through. It's very individualized. So depending on the person, but I tend to go more heavy on the proteins, fewer carbohydrates, unless you're an athlete and you need a lot of carbs, quickly. But that's also very different. So working with athletes is something I love to do. So do you know Derek White? He's Have you heard of the name?
It
He's
sounds familiar.
he's with the Celtics.
Oh,
He's
yes.
he's a guard with the Celtics.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so he was one of my students when he was
What?
in high school. Yeah, he was one of my nutrition students on the basketball team there at Legend High School, which is in my neighborhood. He's from Parker. And so I would go in and work with the basketball team, and the poor kid wasn't growing, so he didn't get scholarship offers because he wasn't growing until he grew in college, and then, went to a different college down in Colorado Springs, and then he was picked up by CU, and then he was seen. He was discovered, and so started out with the Spurs, and then he's with the Celtics right now. So anyway, he just got an NBA championship last season. They didn't make it into the finals this season because Jason Tatum tore his Achilles
Yeah.
tendon. So that was a bummer. But he's an Olympic athlete. And so I love watching the Celtics. And I watch every game and I scream. And my husband is like, Derek just made a great play, because I watched Derek. And so I'm another mother for him. I'm a fan mother. But anyway, I enjoy watching Derek play for the Celtics.
Now, this is completely off topic, but I'm going to ask Coach Prime, Deion
Coach.
Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So how's it living up there in Colorado with Deion up there? Because I know like that whole area, I think it's in Boulder.
Yes.
How's that whole thing? Have y'all been able to watch any of the games last year or anything?
Remind me what you're talking about with Deion Sanders.
Football. He coaches the Colorado Buffaloes.
The CU. Okay. Yeah, I don't watch college football.
Oh, you're just basketball?
Just basketball.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay.
I can't answer that question, but
it's totally fine. But that's pretty cool that Derek was in your class. And so you actually like taught him a lot of good stuff.
Well, I would go in a few times a season with the entire basketball team and teach them sports nutrition, and then visit the next season and go in a few times. And so he was a part of a group of many basketball students. And I also have a professional baseball player who I taught from the baseball team when I taught sports nutrition. He was with who's in Boston? The Yankees?
Red Sox.
Red Sox. He did play for the Red Sox, but he went somewhere else. But anyway, so I have two students who play professionally, but that's kind of fun, But I don't know that it was anything specific that I taught them, but hopefully I taught them to start paying attention in high school. And I taught them drink orange juice with your steak because you need vitamin C to absorb that protein. from the
Whoa, I
meet.
never heard of that.
Yeah. So hopefully they
Interesting.
remembered some of those kind of funky little facts that I tried to teach him so that I would engage high schoolers.
That's
It's not
interesting.
always easy.
You ever taught or had a client that was a triathlete? That's what I do. I do the Ironman
Oh,
races.
cool. Nice.
So you ever had anyone like that before?
No, although my daughter did cross country and track, and I also taught both of those teams at the high school as well. And so, the different events and that kind of thing. But no, I've never had a triathlete that I've trained.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
what I
very
do.
cool
So
that you do that.
yeah,
So
and
you
that go ahead.
so you pay attention a lot to your diet.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
I monitor my sleep, my training readiness. Like if I go off a feeling, how do I feel when I'm working out?
Mhm.
Um, Fueling, like nutrition. Depending on the workout, I'll um, take certain things as far as
Mhm.
electrolytes. Just
Mhm.
working out and drinking water is not enough. You got to replenish those electrolytes.
Yep.
And so I've had to learn through all the cramps that I've had
Yeah.
to really dial in on my sodium intake, um, and potassium and magnesium and all those good things. So,
Good for you.
yep. And I'm doing Ironman Waco in October.
Okay.
And then I have another race I'm doing in a month from now that
Okay.
I'm training for. So, yeah,
What don't
triathlete.
you
Go
what
ahead.
don't you do, Trey?
That's a good question.
You're
I,
involved in
c-
a lot of things.
I am. I'm like a jack of all trades,
Yeah.
And just a little bit about me. A lot of my gifts came from suffering as well.
Yeah. What
You
would
know,
what would you say?
so when I was younger, I had what's called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. It's a severe allergic reaction to a medication.
Okay.
And so I took that medication and it put me in the hospital for about, I want to say 2 to 3 months. I was
Wow.
I was immobile. If you look it up online, I don't want to misquote like any statistics, but um, there's like a high percentage mortality rate. There's also a high percentage disability rate where people go blind, they never recover, or they just die. So SJS, Stevens Johnson syndrome, um, is when your body, you know what anaphylaxis is.
Mhm.
So SJS is the top that a person could experience, and your immune system fights your own body, basically.
Mm.
And so I started to develop second and third degree burns, blisters all over my body. You can probably see some scars. It's kind of hard on camera. So I
Wow.
endured. So I endured pain as well.
Yeah.
My eyelashes came out. To this day, I barely have eyelashes because of it.
Mm.
Lost all my fingernails, toenails. And so early on in my life, I want to say this happened when I was 14, 15. I learned very early about suffering. And what I learned is that you could do two things. You can harness that pain, or you can let it consume you in a bad way.
Mm.
And so early on, I learned how to use pain for my good. And from that place, I've developed just this ability to push when things get hard. And some of my darkest moments in my life is where I found my giftings. Like this
Mhm.
podcast
Mm.
came from a valley in my life. Iron Man came from a valley in my life. So there is a very unique correlation between suffering and gifts.
Mm-hmm.
That's I've never heard that kind of perspective until I met you
Hmm.
about gifts and suffering. And so today you've actually enlightened me and the audience on everything you shared. Like I consider you a friend.
Thank you.
Also
Likewise.
consider you a mentor. Honestly, like you've taught me so much. I love your zeal, your spirit. I see your heart, and I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you, and
Thank
I
you.
thank you for just being strong and courageous and coming on here and just sharing your story today. Mark is remarkable. I'm so happy that you have someone in your life like that. Um, I wish there were more Marks out there, and if not, I could be a Mark in my own story to somebody else, and that's something I'm working on, right? And so I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and um, being an advocate for complex regional pain syndrome, and that's I never knew that was a constant pain. I thought it just comes and it goes, comes and it goes. But you're
No,
dealing with this and you're fighting it day in and day out, moment by moment, and you'll be in my prayers for sure. And I appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you. This has been, you've been a mentor to me too. Every time you talk and share and have a conversation, you learn from various people. You can learn something from every single conversation that you have. And so I hope you do become a Mark. And if you ever want to talk to Mark, he would love to talk with you. He loves it. He just loves it. So, um, so feel free, to reach
Absolutely.
out
Yeah.
and have a conversation with him. He's a good guy. So, but yeah, um, I've been blessed by this conversation today. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that's one of the reasons why I got on this platform or to do a podcast was just to form genuine connections with people.
Hmm.
I've found in my life over time, um, the life changing stuff happens when you make genuine connections. Surface level, I just, I'll be nice and courteous, but I want to get to the meat and potatoes.
Hmm.
I want to be victorious in my life. I want to be strong in overcoming the battles. I'm not a fool to the games my mind can play on me. And so everyone I talk to, hey, I'm trying to learn how are you figuring this out? What can I take from this? And so this whole entire conversation with you has been very good, eye opening. It's been refreshing. I consider you a friend,
Amen.
maybe someday I'll come up to Colorado and come to your fire pit and maybe we can go hang out or something. And, you
You're
know,
always welcome.
and so, before we get off, I haven't asked you, but what's a way that people can contact you, your website, and how do they reach you?
Yeah. So my website is my name. It's Darci with an I, Darci, middle initial J, and then Steiner, Steiner.com, darcijsteiner.com. All my socials are on there. There's a place where you can sign up for my newsletter. I have a newsletter that comes out once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks with spiritual content and nutritional content. Um, so, there's that. And my books are on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com, all the .coms that sell books. And follow me on Amazon and you'll hear when my next book comes out. And otherwise, you might miss that. And we
Will that be
will.
out? Will that be out this year? Actually,
Probably not. Probably next year. So,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, if you follow me on Amazon, you'll learn kind of some updates and when that's coming out and being pre-released. And it was a fun book. It was a 3-year project.
Wow.
So lots of research, but worth it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming on Exploring Places Unknown. I hope that I know you will have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again for your time. And I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I don't feel like this will be the last time we talk. I just have this weird feeling like there may be episode part two, about something. But thank you again. And I'll catch you on the next one.
That sounds good. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, Tre.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.